In case you missed it, here's a Sports Animal Rewind.
Why don't we do our eye on the SEC?
The undisputed best conference.
Champions of the college football world.
The fans. The talent.
I know one thing, the SEC just got a little tougher.
The University of Tennessee.
Details, small details.
Let's put an eye on the SEC. To help us with that, let's go to Gainesville. Sports talk show host for WRUF, reporter covering the Florida Gators, knows them as well as anybody you will find. Friend of the show, Steve Russell, joins us here on the News Sentinel Sports page. Hey, Steve, Vince, and Mike Strange here in Knoxville. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, guys, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, always great to talk to you and learn about the Gators and the bye week. How much do you think that bye week going into this Tennessee game helped Florida sort of get some things together?
Well, I guess we'll know Saturday, guys, but I do think even though it comes early in the year, it comes at a really good time because even though it's early, Florida was really hurt injury-wise. Driscoll hurt his knee and was seen around campus walking in a boot. So if they had to play last week, he wouldn't have been 100%. He says he is now. The offensive line has been really hit hard by injuries. Chaz Green's out for the year. Left tackle DJ Humphreys was hurt in that game, and when they brought Tyler Moore over to play left tackle, he did not do well at all. He also got hurt, but Matt Jones now, the running back, 100%. So this open week, if nothing else, gets them a lot healthier.
Steve, did you kind of miss nostalgic for the good old days when Tennessee Florida was a really big game that Florida and Florida fans looked at it as a big game?
Yeah, we were talking about that on our show yesterday because two of the guys that are on with me, Noah Brandeis and Travis McGriff, played then, during the good old days, so to speak. When this game opened the SEC season, it really meant a lot. At times, the winner of this game, you had to win this to win the SEC East. Yeah, I do miss it, and I think fans from both schools miss it. You guys know the struggles Tennessee's gone under, and Florida hasn't been, the elite team year in and year out that it was under Spurrier. So, yeah, I do kind of miss that. And hopefully for both schools, they get back. And even though now the game will be later, hopefully it'll mean something down the road again.
Joined by Steve Russell, sports talk show host in Gainesville, learning about the Florida Gators. Tennessee at Florida, 3:30 on CBS this coming Saturday. You mentioned some of those injuries, Steve. Just give us a status update. Chaz Green out for the year, but what's the status of those other guys that you mentioned?
Now they're healthy. That's the good thing. I mean, look, is Driscoll 100%? We'll find out. He says he is. And there really isn't anybody behind him. I mean, you can talk all you want about Tyler Murphy or anybody else, but if they lose Driscoll, it is going to be bad. And this offense isn't exactly lighting it up points-wise either. And that's the big talk here, that the offense is blasé. They've only scored 40 points in 2 games. I tend to look at the glass half full. I thought Driscoll showed some promise against Miami. He threw for 291. He made a couple of really bad decisions in the red zone, and Florida's -4 in turnovers, and that's the worst in the league. That's got to get better. But I think if they're able to clean it up and Driscoll's able to make less bad plays, this offense will get better.
Florida this year, talk about the running back situation. And you mentioned Matt is healthy. Is he a real a difference maker from the guy that would be in there if he weren't in there?
It's a great question. I think the jury's out. When Jones played behind Gillislee last year, he certainly showed flashes of being a really good back. But we don't know that yet, and that's one of the issues here. Right now, if you look at Florida's depth chart, they've got Matt Jones, who's unproven, Mac Brown, a redshirt junior who hasn't done much, and then you have a former walk-on in Mark Herndon, and you have a converted defensive back in Valdez Showers. That's your running backs. Kelvin Taylor, very highly recruited Fred Taylor's son, hasn't seen the field a lot. Fans are calling for him, but he's the 5th-string running back now, and he's behind a former walk-on and other guys who haven't played much. So that kind of tells you where the running back position is. But Jones says he's healthy now. If the offensive line is healthy, I think they'll run the ball better. But look, teams, I believe, are going to stack the line of scrimmage and make Florida beat them throwing the ball. We'll see if Tennessee does that. Miami did it. Florida threw it well, but they could not get to the end zone.
Steve Russell joining us here on the News Sentinel sports page. Steve, what about the wide receiver position? It's been something that's been an issue for quite a while. Is there promise there, or is this still an issue just with different guys?
Still an issue, but I do think there is some hope there. Quentin Dunbar's turned out to be a pretty nice receiver. He's kind of gotten it late. I would probably rate him as Florida's best receiver now. Solomon Patton was a guy very fast. They used on jet sweeps a lot, but he's now become more of a factor in the passing game. And Trey Burton has also done a good job. But what I've also seen is receivers have run wrong routes, and that was one of the reasons that Driscoll threw a pick last week. There's still some confusion there in routes they're running, combinations they're running. They've got a couple of highly touted freshmen, but they haven't done a whole lot. And if you go back to about 2009 and look at the receivers Florida's recruited, a lot of them aren't there, or they've missed. Guys like Andradas and other people either aren't with the program, left it, didn't pan out. So that's why the position's where it is, because a lot of the guys they recruited haven't done a good job or haven't made it.
Speaking of young receivers, Tennessee has two freshmen that are playing a lot, Marquez North and Josh Smith. And yesterday, Butch Jones was talking about Marquez North, saying he's having a tough time getting off the line of scrimmage, learning the nuances to get that release, to get open. And he says he's going to be going against two NFL cornerbacks Saturday at Florida. Is that the case? Is Florida pretty good at cornerback?
I think if there's a better pair at corner in the country, I'd like to see them. Roberson and Purifoy both will play the old bump and run, I've got you all over the place, and a freshman, Vernon Hargraves III, comes in nickel situations and dime situations. He already has 2 interceptions, and he is going to be in that mold. There is absolutely no question in my mind watching this kid play. He has a nose for the ball. Now, at safety, Jalen Watkins, who was playing corner, replaces Marcus May this week. May was burned on a long touchdown pass, and Watkins also is a guy who's a very good corner. So from a corner standpoint, fellas, they are loaded, and Purifoy and Roberson are very good. Now, that said, if you can get off the line on them, they can be beaten, like any cornerback can, but they're still really, really good players.
Well, Antonio Morrison is listed second team at that Mike linebacker. Is that not accurate? How has he worked his way back in, if at all?
He's going to start, from what I'm told.
Okay.
And that's because he's finally done his penance, if you will, for what happened in the offseason when he had a 1-game suspension, which was at 1.2. That's a position, guys, that I think Florida is good at, but not a lot of depth. You don't want starters hurt. And here's the thing about watching this team. If you watch them on the hoof, I see NFL players all over the place on defense. And some of those players are very young, the Bullards of the world, those guys. I think they're NFL guys. Hargraves is going to be in the NFL. I'm telling you that right now as a freshman. On offense, you don't readily see that. And I think that's the difference on this team, and that's what fans see. Why can they go out and recruit this terrific defensive talent, because Muschamp is a defensive coach, and yet from an offensive standpoint, they can't get those dynamic players. The freshmen will see. Maybe Fullwood and those guys over time will do better. But I think that's what fans are frustrated with. Loads of talent on defense and not so much on the offensive side.
Well, let's talk about some of the defensive linemen, because you mentioned Bullard. There's a ton of talent there. Talk about just how good that D-line is, and maybe even if you want to include Ronald Powell, the Sam backer as well.
Yeah, Powell, his return, he's finally recovered from his injury, and he really gives Florida a lot of flexibility. I like him a lot. When he first came on campus, I got to tell you, his head was about as full in the clouds as you can get, because Urban Meyer just said, he's this and he's that. And he didn't play all that well. But now, playing the buck position, he'll also come up on the line of scrimmage. When you get him and Bullard, Dominique Easley has been an absolute beast inside, and that's where he is now. He's played inside and outside. Really, really good on the defensive front. Now, at nose, they're not real deep there, so that's a place you don't want injury, but Brian Cox's son has gotten some playing time as well. Cummings inside. This is a really good D-line that has a chance to be really good before the season's over.
Steve, I know you're honest in your assessment of the Florida Gators. That's why we have you on. That's why we respect you so much. How good is this coaching staff? What kind of grade would you give this coaching staff to the body of work, that what you've seen so far under Will Muschamp? Give us a grade on this Florida coaching staff.
I think the coaching staff, as far as coaching kids up and making adjustments in game, is probably a B. They're good at that. Now remember, at wide receiver, another reason why I think Florida has not had production there is because of the departure of Aubrey Hill, the former Gator a couple of years ago, who abruptly left the program. They had a graduate assistant coaching that position, and I don't care how good a GA is, it's not the same as having a guy. Here comes Joker Phillips, a proven wide receivers coach, but he's only in his first year. So there has been that. And Florida's had different offensive coordinators. Some have left. P's now in his second year. So I think overall a B, but I do think in evaluating offensive talent at skill positions, that still has left something to be desired on the recruiting front. And we all know 4-star guy, 5-star guy, it does not matter a lick when you get to college. That's my only gripe with this group. Muschamp is a Saban guy, and our fans here do not understand this is not Steve Spurrier, it's not Urban Meyer. He believes in winning by running the football, balanced offense, playing defense and special teams, and you win, 24-16. Fans don't like it. They think the offense is terrible. Well, if that's the case, you better find a new coach, because I don't think he'll change a whole lot. He's not going to throw the ball 45 times. If they do, they'll lose.
What would it take for Florida to make to fire Will Muschamp? How bad would this season have to get for it to get to that point?
Oh, it would have to be pretty disastrous. I mean, they would have to go, 500 or below. Now, that said, you look at the schedule, and if you assume you beat Tennessee at home, and I don't think there's a team on Florida's schedule, fellas, that Florida's going to blow out. That's just not offensively who they are. They got to go to Baton Rouge, got to go to South Carolina, and then you have Georgia, which has beaten Florida the last couple of years. So that's 3 possible losses on paper where I think the other team is going to be favored over Florida. And then, Florida State's a wild card, even though it's in Gainesville. With the way Winston's playing, that offense is a lot more dynamic than I thought it would be. So there is a real possibility of, 7-5, 8-4. If that happens, he won't be fired. But next year will be an absolutely monster year. He's going to have to show some improvement, getting closer to, because look, fans right now, get us to Atlanta. That's what they're looking at. Get us to Atlanta. And without getting there again, if that happens, 7-5, 8-4, next year becomes gigantic for him.
Steve Russell from WRUF in Gainesville, sports talk show host, joining us, previewing the Florida Gators. Last thing with you, Steve. How little do fans what do fans look at with Tennessee? Is this just an absolute gimme, or is there any sort of concern with the streak over Tennessee, with Tennessee's loss against Oregon? Are they absolutely giving Tennessee zero chance to win this game?
I wouldn't say zero, but more. I think the Oregon game you throw out. Look, we all know how good they are, what they do. It's tough to prepare for them in a week. I don't care who it is. It's tough to prepare for that, especially when you go cross country and play them out there. I think the concern for Gator fans is not Tennessee. It's Florida, because of the offensive style Florida plays. They tend to keep teams in games. And if they have red zone issues again, remember, 40 points in 2 games, and that includes playing Toledo. Well, now it's maybe, 16-7. It's 19-10 in the third quarter, and a team is hanging around. So a drop ball, a fumble, a pick, some turnover, all of a sudden the other team's in. And I think that's a bigger concern for Florida fans against Tennessee, with all due respect, than it is to Tennessee.